Hello, my name is Alex, and this is my presentation on Charles Lindbergh. His early life, his father was a politician in the Republican Party, and his mother was more just took care of the homestead. He grew up in Minnesota, but his family was never really that close. He was constantly moving in between Washington D.C. and Wisconsin, not Wisconsin, Minnesota. His family was never very close. He never really enjoyed school either. He dropped out of school to take care of his farm with his family, and then some of his hobbies included he enjoyed motorboating or motorbiking, stargazing, and engineering. He was a big engineer, and he did a lot of inventing for his family. And he attended college in Wisconsin, but he really didn't like that either. And after only 3 semesters, he dropped out of college. After he dropped out of college, that was when he was first introduced to aviation, when he went to the Nebraska Air Company to learn how to fly for the first time. His first flight was on April 9th, 1922. And a couple months after that, he unfortunately his company that he was learning how to fly from shut down, and he moved on to become a barnstormer. The guy who bought out the company was a barnstormer, so he went to learn with him, and together he learned a lot of his flying skills from that barnstormer. After he did that for I think a couple years, he joined the army, doing various jobs around the United States before becoming a reservist, and where he was introduced to airmail by Frank and Bill Robertson, and that's where he flew all across the U.S., mainly on an airmail route from Chicago to St. Louis, and he earned a lot of his flying skills from there. His claim to fame was, while he was in that airmail route, he learned that Raymond Orteig offered a prize of $25,000 to the first person who could fly from New York to Paris nonstop. Lindbergh became invigorated by this idea, and he got a bunch of investors together and convinced them that could be the one to do it. He found a company called Ryan Aircraft in San Diego, who built him the Spirit of St. Louis, which was a very lightweight aircraft. It has no front windshield at all. It was stripped of everything except the most basic essentials for flight, and basically filled with fuel tanks. So it would be his fuel, and and that was what he would use to fly all the way to Paris. He flew to New York after the aircraft was completed within like 2 months, which was really quick for the time. And over which you can see the timeline up here. He took off at 7:52 Eastern Daylight Time on Friday, and he landed at 10:22 p.m. French time on Saturday. It was a very long 33-hour flight, which is remarkable, especially since he had to hand fly the whole thing. There was no autopilot. And because of this, he became instantly famous. There were hundreds of thousands of people who came to meet him. They held parades for him all across the world. The biggest parade in New York's history was held in his honor. He got to meet the King and the Queen of England and of Belgium, and was given multiple awards. And he was the most famous person of his time by a long shot. Like, everyone knew about about Lindbergh, and it got to the point where someone kidnapped his son and killed his son, unfortunately. And it became such a widely publicized affair, that for its time, it was in the early 1930s, it had more news coverage than the rise of Hitler or the Japanese Chinese War. It was the thing that dominated news lines all around the world. And after this event, he and his wife Anne moved to a more reclusive life, where they helped forward aviation through airlines like Pan Am, and helped do other things in aviation. His downfall, and some things that he's not really that well remembered for, some of his worst things, is later in life he flew to Germany and learned more about their Luftwaffe system, and became to really like the Germans. So when he came back to the United States, he joined the America First Committee, which was kind of like a committee against going to war with Germany and against interventionists. And this kind of forced a label on him that he was not someone who had America's best interest in heart, and unfortunately caused many people to dislike him. Thank you for listening to my wonderful presentation.